Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this time of remembering Dr. Marsha Saxton. We're going to be getting started, so if you all would find a seat. And you know, it is always a sign that we are remembering someone with joy and with fond memories of the amazing things that they did, when there is still so much conversation here before a service. So that is a joy to hear. Come into this circle of loss. Come into this circle of compassion. Come into this circle of memory. Come in to this circle of love. Today we gather for Marcia. The loss, the hurt we feel, are reaching out to one another. Do not close the great circle, but rather open it to one another. We are gathered in the sacred circle of all humanity, through the one fate that shapes our lives and through the grief that death brings. So as we're beginning our time together this afternoon, I have a few notes to make. First, if I could ask you to please put your phone on silent. And given this is not a normal service time, I will make sure mine is on silent also. And some words of explanation as well. We have gender identity inclusive restrooms here in our atrium, but if you go back through our social hall and back to the other side of the church, there are gender identity specific restrooms there, as well as a single stall restroom, if that's your preference. And we have throughout the sanctuary space for those who need additional space for mobility needs, and I ask us all to just be sensitive to their space and their needs, as we are welcoming them and protecting their needs in our space. All right, I think that's my little announcement-y things. But another beginning piece, which we use at the beginning of each of our Sunday worship services and many of our board meetings and such, but which was fitting to include in Marcia's service, is our statement about the indigenous lands on which this church resides. And I bring this specifically into Marcia's service because the needs and rights of indigenous peoples were very important to Marcia as well. And we're actually, the Indigenous Environmental Network was one of the organizations that got the most in what she left to other places and people in her bequests. So as we begin, we want to acknowledge that this church occupies land in Huchen, the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people. We understand that we continue to benefit from the seizure and occupation of this land. We acknowledge and embrace our responsibility to take restorative action. We affirm that this is deeply felt and commit our congregation and hopefully commit ourselves and each other, whether we are part of this congregation or not, as we all reside on indigenous lands. We commit to be in right relationship with indigenous communities, aligning in solidarity, supporting indigenous projects, and caring properly for the land.
Go softly, I know, nothing to fear, Spirit is here. Love be my guide, lift me, I'll fly, far from this place, on the wings of grace. Gently I go, softly I know, nothing to fear, Spirit is here. Love be my guide, lift me, I'll fly, far from this place, long to feel. Spirit is here. Love be my guide. Lift me, I'll fly far from this place on the wings of grace.
We've come together today to honor a loss, the loss of Marcia and the feelings that we feel with her loss, which I think that song just expressed beautifully. The feelings, even though it has been some time, they may still linger, and they can take on many different forms in each one of us. Sadness, numbness, confusion, loneliness, perhaps feeling overwhelmed at times, maybe feelings of guilt or relief. And I name these because they are all valid feelings, and they may come back at different times. And each new loss that we experience can bring back feelings from previous ones, too, the feelings and the pain. It is important for us to have these feelings. It is important to acknowledge them in ourselves and in one another, and also to share them with one another as we can. May we be open and vulnerable with each other. Friendly faces, kindly touches, open hearts and ears, friendly words, or even no words at all. These all convey shared empathy and understanding, and they are important as we go forward and as we embrace each loss, especially during these past 2 years where so much and so many have been lost. Death brings separation and sorrow. But we are gathering now and able to hold and remember folks now. And today we gather to acknowledge the loss and the grief, but also to acknowledge and celebrate Marcia's life, her accomplishments, and the many things that she did. This piece by Dorothy Monroe speaks well to the joy of living. Death is not too high a price to pay for having lived. Mountains never die, nor do the seas or rocks or endless sky. Through countless centuries of time, they stay eternal and deathless. Yet do they ever live? If choice there were, I would not hesitate to choose mortality. Whatever fate demanded in return for life, I'd give. For never to have seen the fertile plains, nor heard the winds, nor felt the warm sun on sands beside the salty sea, nor touched the hands of those I love. Without these, all the gains of timelessness would not be worth one day of living and loving, come what may. So as Marcia was a member of this Unitarian Universalist congregation, we'd like to start our time together by lighting our chalice. And Amy is going to light it for us. It is both a memorial flame today and also a symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith tradition. We light it today with these words by Michael. Okay, the author is written in your program. I shouldn't be trying to do this without writing it down. We are not alone. We are this flame, ancient as the stars and new as the vulnerable spark. We are not alone. We are this chalice, rimmed by the spiral dance of searching. We are not alone. We are the light soaring, the shadow deepening, the dance between them. We are not alone. We are the heirs of the tribes and their fires, the healers and their circles. We are not alone. We are here for ourselves and here for each other. We are not alone. Thank you, Amy. And also to start us, we'll be hearing from many folks, but I picked something special to start us out. On the day that Marcia died, when I was at her house with some of her close friends and family, as we were leaving her room, I looked and there was a shelf of books right at my eye level, right beside her door. And off that shelf, I picked up this copy of Poems by Rumi. So I chose a few for you today from Marcia's book. I'll read each of them twice because Rumi's work is so multi-layered that it can take multiple hearings. So these are 3 short poems by Rumi. You have said what you are. I am what I am. Your actions in my head here in my hands, with something circling inside. I have no name for what circles so perfectly. You have said what you are. I am what I am. Your actions in my head here in my hands, with something circling inside. I have no name for what circles so perfectly. Some nights stay up till dawn, as the moon sometimes does for the sun. Be a full bucket pulled up the dark way of the well, then lifted out into the light. Some nights stay up till dawn, as the moon sometimes does for the sun. Be a full bucket pulled up the dark way of the well, then lifted out into the light. Days are sieves to filter spirit, reveal impurities, and to show the light of some who throw their own shining light into the universe. Days are sieves to filter spirit, reveal impurities, and to show the light of some who throw their own shining light out into the universe.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me. Come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me. Come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
That song is from the Unitarian Universalist Gray hymnal that you actually see right in your seats, and that was a favorite of Marcia's that she wanted included in her service. So one of the things that I like to do before you hear from many folks is to give you a bit of a sketch of many things in Marcia's life. You'll hear from many people in many different aspects of her life. And since she did so much in her professional life, that's what I wanted to share about. She did so much. She spent more than 25 years teaching at Cal Berkeley, was a founding scholar of disability studies, not just there, but was a founding scholar for disability studies. During her time at Cal, she co-founded the Disability Studies minor and served as a lecturer within the newly created field. She was fierce, gentle, honest, and brave, and added that she had many fans in various aspects of her work. She also served as Director of Research and Training at the World Institute on Disability. She authored Sticks and Stones and With Wings, a collection of short stories and poems written by women with disabilities. And she is actually joining us today in a box with the wings of birds on it. And as I was in fact going to grab my stole, I had a different one in mind, and the one with bird's feathers is the one that made it around my neck, unbeknownst to me. So Marcia picked this for me to wear today too. In total, she published 3 books, 2 films, and over 100 articles and book chapters about disability rights, personal assistance, women's health, violence prevention, and genetic screening issues. She was important to her students as well. I heard a story, and I wish I could have seen this, of how during the Nobel Conference on Reproductive Technology at Gustavus Adolphus College in 2017, hundreds of students wore cutouts of Marcia above their heads as they walked into the Great Hall to honor her work. She loved teaching and served as a role model for students, fostering open conversations to break societal taboos and encouraging her students to connect to the emotional importance of their material. She also made it onto national television. I don't know how many of us might have something like appearing on 60 Minutes on our bucket lists. Anyone? Marcia did it. She interviewed on 60 Minutes about wrongful birth lawsuits and was a guest on Talk of the Nation with Ray Suarez, addressing issues of reproductive technology and the disability community's view of selective abortion. Marcia was one of the first scholars to address ableism in medical education. In writing and speaking on bioethics issues, she provided an important feminist and women's rights and disability rights perspective. She argued for the need to support women's rights to abortion while illuminating that a decision to terminate a pregnancy where the fetus may be born with a disability is influenced by negative societal attitudes towards people with disabilities and misconceptions about what it's like to live a life with a disability. And in addition to all of this fabulous stuff, Marcia was a longtime member of this congregation and an important member of our Social Justice Council. And she was not only a great advocate, an activist, and scholar, but was also a great friend to many. Marcia died peacefully in her home on December 1st, 2021. Before her death, she gathered with a few friends and family and shared what she called her death wish, that all of us watch the documentary film Crip Camp about the disability rights revolution, and not only to watch it ourselves, but to encourage everyone we know to watch it as well. And I hope that we can engage in that wish of Marcia's and continue to take awareness of her work and her work forward. So this will be the second, we're about to hear the second of a Chopin piece. Marcia also loved playing the piano, and on her piano was a book of Chopin music. So that's why we brought this music into this space today.
Hello. It's so nice to see everybody here. Thank you all so much for coming. For those who don't know me, my name's Josie, and I'm Meg Coker-Magnan's daughter. Marcia and Mark were my godparents, and I didn't get a few pauses in this one. I grew up calling Marcia my extra mom. Thanks. She was also an extra grandparent to me and Dan's 3 children. She used to come over weekly and play with our daughter and do crafts and drink tea and try to convince my children to eat vegetables and just generally share her wonderful Marcia energy with her family. Reverend Michelle did a fabulous job of capturing her career snapshot, so I won't reiterate all of that, but as you all know, she just had such a tremendous impact on her fields and the fields that she cared about from both an academic perspective and a social justice perspective and a personal perspective, and really just left a mark on so many fields. One of her kind of later in life interests that she added on was disaster preparedness, as Michelle mentioned, but of course with a uniquely Marcia flair, the disaster preparedness videos featured puppets that talked in silly voices. So she just left her unique mark in each of her fields. As you all know, she loved teaching so much. She loved her role at Berkeley and being in her students' lives. The last Thursday before she passed, she insisted on logging into her teaching portal one last time and giving more feedback on all the student papers. And I got copied on the tech support emails when she was having trouble doing that. But she was not gonna let a password reset function get in the way of her speaking to her students one last time. She just had such a gift for giving everyone around her her unique focus and energy, as as Sarah knows, because she grew up with this too. This was such a powerful gift when being with children. And I'm sure Jasper too can speak to that, and other children of folks here. So, one of my favorite memories as a child, in addition to all of the crafts and all of the homemade Halloween costumes and homemade dresses, was the Easter tradition of loading up wagons full of Easter bunnies and taking them to the Veterans Hospital and going around and singing Easter carols. I'm not even sure if that's a liturgical category, but we made it work, and just sharing good spirit with anyone who would listen. She absolutely loved this church. She loved being a part of the community. She loved being part of its anti-racism activities and all of the other special causes that this congregation rallies around. She cared about environmentalism. She also loved animals, as I'm sure you're all well aware. And she loved so much her family and her nieces in Sweden, one of whom is here with us, Sarah, visited them as often as she could and really brought Swedish culture back here and shared it with a lot of us in a lot of unique ways. She had a wide circle of friends, and I'm so happy to see so many of you here. I am also so grateful on behalf of all of us for those who played a special part in helping towards the end of her life. It was a tough period for her, but really, really appreciate you all know who you are, who played a big part in that phase. And then I'm sure you all know that, the absolute love of her life was Mark. And we shared how much she just deeply treasured that partnership and continued to the very end. As Reverend Michelle noted, Marcia did want to make sure that everyone knows that their homework is to watch Crip Camp. And you'll see if you haven't watched it before, it really captures one of Marcia's core values, that even people who are marginalized by society just have an incredible power to change the world. And that's really what she did. So we love you, Marcia. We miss you. And on a final logistical note, these beautiful scarves here, as I'm sure you've figured out, were Marcia's, and Sarah collected them, and you're invited to take one if you'd like as a memento, and we're happy to help you grab one. So, thank you.
Hello to everyone. It's not okay. Hello to everyone. Thanks for having the tissues nearby, Josie. We're celebrating Marcia's extraordinary life, so I'm going to start with some of the things that Marcia loved as well. She loved singing and creating one-of-a-kind outfits and quilts with the fabric she collected. Many of these scarves, I believe, she made. She loved kitty cats and humans. She loved Mark, her family near and far, her students, her Josie and Meg, her many co-counselors, and those of us fortunate to be her friends. Marcia loved receiving and giving presents, and she loved concocting sugar-free, gluten-free muffin recipes. I miss Marcia every day, but I'd be lying if I said I miss those muffins. Marcia showed her love in so many ways. She's the only person I know who became excited about writing recommendations. She loved paying attention to children and being silly, playing dress up as a spider or a kitty witch for Halloween. Marcia joined me and Jasper at his most important events and most holidays for potlucks at one of our homes. Marcia was a fierce advocate for herself and for others. We bonded in the late 1990s, although her reputation had preceded her and I knew of her before I met her. But we bonded as bladder buddies and spent hours comparing urologists, Chinese herbs, and antibiotics for various symptoms. And for those of you who are uninitiated, it's not too late to find yourself a bladder buddy. After years of visits and decisions related to her elderly Aunt Alice, I told Marcia she deserved the Nobel Niece Prize, and she loved that. Memories I cherish include magical trips to Spirit Rock and Mendocino before Mark got too sick, and singing to Mark together as he died at home in 2009. As with Marcia, we were able to gather and grieve their good lives in their bedroom at Walnut Street before saying a final goodbye. Marcia was not ready to go, and I and you were not ready for her to go. I'll close with a text message Marcia sent me during the thick of it after her cancer diagnosis in 2018. I may or may not be able to say it without too many tears, but to be honest, Marcia loved tears. Hi, I don't expect you to be helpful. Just travel the journey with me, and we get to love each other. Yay.
So I have the privilege of sharing with you words from Josie's mom, Magno. Marcia and I were close friends for 45 years, she shares. We met when we joined with others to start a counseling and advocacy organization for people with disabilities. The organization was called the Boston Self-Help Center. Most people who came to Boston Self-Help had never talked about their disabilities and did not feel connected to others with similar struggles. Marcia developed personal growth and peer leadership groups and encouraged people to share openly for the first time what their lives were like. Relationships flourished and people were empowered. Lives were changed. It was an exciting time for us all. I was interested in identifying the common needs for our group members for housing, transportation, employment, education, to name a few, and educating and advocating for the new 504 law. Marcia and I went to Washington, D.C. and met with the staff of state senators and representatives. I don't know how we got there or where we stayed, but what I do remember is how big the Capitol building was. We weren't trained in how to present our issues, but Marcia just started talking about how many people with disabilities there were and about all the barriers we faced. Over time, Marcia became a national spokesperson. Personally, our relationship deepened. We talked about our own disabilities, about relationships with boys, about our mothers, about our goals for ourselves, all the usual stuff girls talk about. We were maids of honor at each other's weddings, and we traveled together to meet each other's families. We spent hours looking through catalogs, and we dyed all of our tops dusty rose. And we were quite silly together. When I got pregnant, Marcia hoped she would too. That didn't work out, but she made space in her large home for us to move in just before Josie was born. Of course, Marcia was at the birth. She was the extra mom who made Halloween costumes, birthday cakes, dresses with dinosaur buttons on them, puppets, picnics, and Easter Bunny parades. She made every occasion more fun. She spent endless hours taking care of Josie and later on our son Sam, giving me some much-needed breaks. We talked a lot about being disabled and why people treated us differently. We loved coming up with theories. When Josie was an infant, I realized she was like a person with a disability. She needed help with everything, including moving, eating, dressing, speaking, and more. Perhaps everyone has memories of such dependence, and these memories are triggered by us. We always had lots to talk about, and I miss our time together. I think about her every day.
Hello. I have to read this because I just don't do this very well. My name is Kimberly Saxton Heinrichs. I am Marcia's second cousin on my father's side. She was 6 years older than me, and I will forever remember her as my beautiful, so grown-up cousin. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with her as we lived several hours away, and my paternal grandparents who raised me didn't have a super reliable car. But people have asked me, what was Marcia like as a child? What was having her as my cousin like? Marcia was my teacher. She was always sending me special letters, pictures, and drawings. She did my portrait once, when we were together at our grandmother's house and when she was 12. I thought it was an incredible work of art. It really was. You can see it. I still have it. The letters that she sent me were filled with emojis way before any of us had ever imagined that they'd be sprinkled into our text messages so easily. I saved all those drawings and letters, and I recently sent her pictures of them to let her know how important they were to me. She was stunned that I still had them after almost 60 years, and I guess she wasn't the only pack rat in the family. I remember her many surgeries. We were not allowed to visit her in the hospital, so we would stand below her window and wave to her. She was all smiles and cheer. It was not until I read her book With Wings that I learned how she suffered through those experiences, but she never complained. And she never let anything ever get in the way of her accomplishing her goals. She came to spend several days with us one summer. I was so thrilled to have her. But now I know how difficult that was for her as a child. She was amazing, though. I never saw her disabilities. She taught me without words to simply see her as differently abled, and as you all know, that was not the view way back then. Marcia also taught me how to speak up when it seems impossible. She spoke at her mother's funeral, and I learned then that being afraid to speak in large crowds is not a reason to not do it. It's all about honoring the beloved, and so by taking myself out of it, it becomes doable. She taught me that if I have something to say, I'd better say it because it matters. I'm grateful for the time I got to spend with her in her last few months. I'm grateful for Amy and all that she did, and also for allowing herself a bit of time and opening up her room to me so that I could be there. Marcia was fully accepting of her journey, much more so than I, and we spent hours talking about what would come next. She didn't know all the difficult things I had endured as a child, and she wanted to hear every story, all the things that had happened to me, and even in her final days, she was listening intently, her focus on me. I didn't want our time together to be all about me, but she insisted. She had a way of being completely present and aware, as you've heard before, and I'm sure you know. She showed me what full attention means and how to give it. I said to a friend upon returning that she taught me how to die with grace. My friend replied that she actually taught me how to live. In those final days, I met many of her dearest friends and her chosen family. She created a network of people who are kind of spectacular. I know that I never would have been in that group. It's by pure luck of relationship that I got to be part of this circle and to know her. You have all been her sisters, her brothers, mothers, fathers, and loved ones, and what an incredible group you are. I want to thank all of you for what you've done for her and all the love you have given. I can't name you all because I'm sure to leave some out, but you know who you are, and so does Marcia. Thank you.